It's early, I know. An hour earlier than normal. It is Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here, John here, you there. And, as we work our way through this, it's 8 to 10. 8 to 10. They kick us out of Morning Will. They kick us out of the cabin that we're staying in here in the mountains at 10 o'clock. So I'm going right up against the edge. And we are going to have a show this morning talking about, I don't know. There might talk about Michael Parkhurst will be joining us at 9 o'clock with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. We had to kind of flip Mike around a little bit. He has an appointment that he has to attend to after 9:30. So Michael Parkhurst, Beyond Goals Mentoring from 9 to 9:30. Bart Keeler, if he's awake, 9:30 to close. And then we'll have some content up and running on the weekend. Got to catch up with Jonas Venelsiu from the JV10 Academy, and it's a futsal academy that is in the Atlanta area, and we get to talk about the benefits of futsal. That'll be up this weekend. Atlanta United 2, for those of you that missed it on the network because you were prepping for USA and Mexico, held the defending champs, had a lead, went 2-2 to penalties, lost in the seventh round of the penalty kick. Columbus got the extra point, but a good point on the road for Atlanta United 2 against Columbus Crew 2 last night. Sunday night, 6:45 is your pregame show. Atlanta United 2 going from Columbus, Ohio to Toronto, Ontario. So they're probably catching that flight later today, and they're going to be spending the weekend with the border. And so Toronto FC 2, Atlanta United 2, Sunday night, 6:45, your pregame. Jason will have your play-by-play shortly thereafter. Kickoff a little after top of the hour. But so last night, then, Michael, we're getting into that too. Last night, USA and Mexico. Okay. And, we're going to do our thing, and it's going to be the rivalry game, and it's going to be heated, and, it's going to have its moments. The first moment actually happened after the pregame show. So, Paul Tenorio, Greg Berhalter set to return as manager of the USMNT, according to multiple sources. His return is imminent. He and Pablo Maurer broke that as we were going. But in the match itself, so we have two separate tracks that we're taking today. We'll be discussing Greg Berhalter, and we'll be discussing what happened on the match. So we'll start with the match, and like I said, I know that Bart Keeler will be joining us. Basically, if Bart wakes up whenever, but I told him, I said, you can nap till 9 and come in then. And this match between the U.S. and El Tri showed you, and it showed you where the state of U.S. soccer is at the moment. It also showed you where the state of the Mexican national team is, and it ain't good. And when it comes down to Christian Pulisic getting a brace, and then the Mexican national team, El Tri, decides, okay, we can't compete, so we're just going to drag this down into the mud. And you end up with the match being what it was. Largest margin of victory ever over 6 official matches dating back to 1934. Then the match gets out of hand, and the fans that were there at Allegiant are also part of this. Match gets out of hand in the second half because Mexico decides, you know what, we can't compete, so we're just going to basically play dirty. We're going to drag the U.S. into this, and we're going to have pushing and shoving, and we're going to chop folks down and see if we can get folks tossed. Well, Weston McKennie and Serginho Dest get tossed. What is Weston McKennie supposed to do in this case? What is Weston McKennie supposed to do when it's basically 1-on-7 is this literally is Kenny Omega on his own, and the elite, and Blackpool Combat Club, and you name it. Kenny Omega is on his own. Ospreay comes in with his guys. Blackpool Combat Club and the Jericho Appreciation Society want to gang up on Kenny Omega. What is Kenny Omega supposed to do in this case? And you're trying to get out of a group of folks while your players are trying to swim into the pile and get you out of that group. Weston McKennie puts his hands on a player's throat. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Weston McKennie did what he did to try to get out of it. I don't blame, but he lost his cool. So now you will not have, unless you appeal, and I don't know if there, off the top of my head, I imagine there's some kind of an appeals process. But now you will be without Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie for the matchup against Canada to win CONCACAF Nations League, as of right now. Cesar Montes and Gerardo Arteaga got red cards for Mexico with all of the shenanigans that were going on in the final 30 minutes. Ivan Barton, the Salvadoran referee, lost the match. Absolutely lost control of the match in the second half. I would not pay Ivan Barton being center ref for a match of this import for a while. Yeah, Michael, they were wrestling references. So basically, just think of being outgunned by the bull, folks that want to be the bully of the block, and it was 7-on-1. So what is Weston McKennie supposed to do? Big thing happening with a pay-per-view coming up in a couple weeks. Dest lost his cool. Ivan Barton has no business being a center ref in a match for the foreseeable future. He has no business being a center ref for the foreseeable future. Lost control of the match, and the piece about how Ivan Barton lost control of the match. You get a red card shown by Barton outside the pile of players that are making their way to the bench. All the pushy shovey and all that kind of stuff that's going on, and trying to goad folks outside the pile, and he's just holding up a red card. He is just holding up a red card. OG morning, it was wild and out of control for the right reasons until about 30 minutes to go, and then for the wrong reasons. And Bart Keeler will be joining us hopefully at 9:30 if he's 9 o'clock for our Friday free kick with Beyond Goals Mentoring. Ivan Barton lost control, and then this is the other element of this. The fans of the Mexican national team in the first half started with that chant. Capital T, capital C, that chant. They started with it. They got a warning over the PA. Then in the second half, as their team continued to do worse, 13th minute. As their team continued to do worse, and some did, but instead of leaving the building and just sitting there and just being disgusted and then going to sample what the nightlife is like in Las Vegas in and around Allegiant Stadium, what they decided to do was be louder with that chant, capital T, capital C. And you got on the big, the big matrix board at Allegiant. It got louder. And the other element of this about Yvonne Barton, Barton calls for 12 minutes of stoppage in a 3-0 game where players are absolutely. So in a game that is decided, done, dusted, put to bed, out the door, gone, Yvonne Barton decides that he wants to have 12 added minutes to wrap things up. And plays 7. And watching the match on Paramount Plus with Dre Cordero and Moadu, literally you get to 7, and Dre and Mo thought that Yvonne Barton was kind of sizing it up at that point. It's like, okay, a couple times, and here's one more, and we're done. So, first and foremost, my issue, and in our production thread last night, it turned into something of a unified front. In a game that is 3-0, that it has players losing their cool, that has 4 red cards, that has 9 yellow cards, you wanted to add 12 minutes to a heated room. I don't know what, I mean, I know what Yvonne Barton was thinking, but I don't know what he was thinking. And what I mean by that is, I know as a center ref, all of the brouhaha, because of all of the gathering of the people, because of all of the pushing and shoving and choking and pushing back and forth. Morning, Ricky. Morning, Sean. Hope you're both doing well. Like I said, sorry about the early wake-up call. But if you're Yvonne Barton, and this match is as out of control and as heated as it is, blow the whistle. Maybe give a token 1 or 2 just to say, yeah, I recognize that we had substitutions and things that made the game go longer than 90 minutes. But you gave 12. And you didn't even get that far. Sean, the USMNT and Mexico, the show is starting so early because the cabin, as you can tell, this is not Studio HD. The cabin that we are in here in the North Georgia Mountains, they kick us out at 10 o'clock. That's checkout time. So we're going up until 10 o'clock. Throw things into a box, find the garbage, put the garbage out on the curb, and then we head back to the big city to get ready for the weekend. So the only reason we're not at 9:05 and the reason that we're at 8 is because we get kicked out of the cabin at 10. Michael Parkhurst at 9 o'clock, Bart Keeler at 9:30. But it's kind of like in a hotel where you sit there and it's like, I'm taking my grace hour, or I'm a frequent flyer, and I'm a frequenter of this hotel chain. Late checkout. No, I'm right there with you. I'd like to have late checkout, but apparently 10 a.m. because I can come in here and fumigate, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, running on Central Time. Exactly, Will. But yeah, Yvonne Barton decided he was going to give 12 extra minutes. Recognizing by the letter of the law, yes, we had comings together, like Poets Laureate, that you had all of this activity that should have given you 12. But no, I mean, it's like instead of going 1-2, blow the whistle at 90 because the game was done. That's control, some of them. We're going to go 12. And because of that chant, capital T, capital C, Yvonne Barton only went 7. Make up your mind. You kind of get into it, and then you quit. stop. Let me phrase it that way. You're like, yep, you knew it was coming. Dre Cordero and Mo Adu were kind of looking at you, and they kind of sensed that you were sizing it up. You blow the whistle at 7, and then Nico Cantor, who is on the sidelines, says that no, it wasn't. The match was not abandoned, or the match was not stopped, even though it was. He was getting word that, no, we haven't stopped the match. It wasn't abandoned because of, but it was. Following every goal kick from Matt Turner, you get that chant. Fights broke out at Allegiant Stadium last night. CONCACAF in a statement said, quote, security staff ejected several fans for engaging in unacceptable behavior. Should have been a positive occasion to showcase high-quality football in our region. It's not so high quality right now with Eltree. One-sided. Eltree has lost to the U.S. 3 times in succession in 21. Final of the First Nations League in Denver. Gold Cup in Vegas. World Cup qualifying. The World Championship last Thanksgiving. Mexico didn't get out of group for the first time in 44 years. Diego Coca said, I know the chair that I sit in. I know there are more fans who want me gone than want me to stay. Frankly, I'm surprised. I was waiting for him to get kiffined on the tarmac on the way home. I was waiting for him to get kiffined on the tarmac. Didn't happen. And I have yet to see the press from the covering this from the Eltree side. Cannot wait to see what this is. Cannot wait. Ricky Ricardo in this morning. Fun, dominant result, but a poorly managed game. You got that right. Questionable red card to McKinney for on 7. What are you supposed to do to get out of a jam? Dumb red by Dest, agreed. He lost his cool. Fall from grace from Mexico. Ridiculous display again from the Mexican fans, and holy news drop. An extremely confusing and disappointing process by the Soccer Federation. Okay. We can get it. Like I said, I was trying to determine whether or not to wait until 9:30, but I know that since you guys have already been discussing it, here we go. It appears, nothing's officially official, but it appears that Greg Berhalter is returning as manager of the U.S. men's national team. And maybe we now know why, and it was floated out on the Bird app and other places. Greg Berhalter was in consideration, apparently, possibly, probably, perhaps, maybe, for the Club America. Word was it's because of the USMNT gig. Still in line for it, so he didn't take the Club America gig, which would have been all sorts of interesting on its own. So that's what you're staring at. The probable Bart was in the Patrick Vieira camp. But the way that it is apparently lining up, Greg Berhalter is returning. Players wanted him, and what we have what we've seen from Greg Berhalter is A team winning competitions in their hemisphere, doing what you needed to do to get out of group, played England tight, and you end up the Argentinians to penalties, and you've got that. And then the players wanted him back. So that's where we are with Greg Berhalter. Michael Head, who's apparently on his way to doing things, as you should be, here on the weekend. Michael's heading to the Central Time Zone today to see the Foo Fighters. Very nice. Ricky's heading to PCB. So we got folks heading into the Central Time Zone, adjusting to, and by the way, this in the morning is not going to be a normal. It's not a normal thing. We're going to go back to 9:05 on Monday morning. Although next week we will be doing some shows from New York City, getting ready for the unified match with Atlanta United and the Red Bulls unified team. That's going to be before the match with Red Bulls and Atlanta United on Saturday from Red Bull Arena. Jason and I will be calling the unified match, and then Jason's going to hang around on the mic, and he and Mike are going to call Red Bulls and Atlanta United on Saturday night. And we'll have NYCFC 2 next Sunday night on the network. So it's going to be a pretty busy time. But no, this is basically a one-off. But as it appears, players wanted Greg Berhalter to return. And with everything that where the United States is right now, Berhalter's return, it is not going to be Jesse Marsch. It is not going to be Patrick Vieira. It appears it's going to be Greg Berhalter returning, and he's going to be in charge of this cycle going forward. Michael back and forth with Will on this. Michael says, if the core players want 3GB, who are we to question them? Not my choice, but they're the ones that matter. So when this dropped, that sent a lot of folks fishing and swimming and trying to figure out what's going on. And Sean, I don't know why your Florida Panthers have all the injuries they do, although I will give Aaron Ekblad a lot of credit for playing basically with like 9 separate injuries. And I don't know how he was upright, but that's why hockey players are a different breed. Hockey players are a different breed. Looking back at Will wants to free West. Hunt City's got a win streak. Will's a happy man. Michael Head. Didn't see the match, however, at some point, the powers that be need to make a decision. They either do not allow Liga MX Mexico matches in the United States, or they allow the behavior. And what you need is a center ref who is not afraid to sit there and have the rules as the rules. But until you get to that moment where folks are, if you are a fan of El Tri, you can see if it gets to a point where Mexico forfeits a match, maybe that's where we get to at this point. Until Mexico gets to the point to where they have forfeited a match because of all of this. But what you do is, and this is kind of the direct, as their team continues to trail and lose and time is running out, the chant gets louder and louder and louder. So why not go ahead and call the fans out on this and go and say, okay, look, You've done the chant. You've done it 3 times. We've warned you. We pulled the players off. You pull them off a third time. You forfeit ticket. You're out the door in whatever minute. Until you end up with a center ref that is that locked in or that in tune with the notion of having a match forfeited and having CONCACAF sit there and say, well, next qualifying match that you have, it's in an empty barn. Until you start to have those kinds of things happening, the fans of El Tree will continue to feel empowered to do that chant, capital T, capital C. They will do that chant louder than match can have. And you end up with what you had. A heated environment on the pitch, fans pissed off the pitch, and a cauldron of activity last night. Largest margin of victory over El Tree in 46 matches dating back to 1934. Everybody's saying, okay, it was worthy of a Vegas run. So you end up with the possible, probable naming of Greg Berhalter all over again. Michael doesn't understand the overall trend of adding minutes on top of minutes of extra time. Well, I mean, the substitution element, if there's something like that, if you're at 90 plus and you want to sub, that's the thing that gets me is like folks want to sub at north end of 90 plus, they're going to add the time back on. I mean, if you're doing it just to kind of give your players a bit of a break so they can kind of catch their breath a little bit, but to do something, that's why you would add minutes on top of minutes. But the whole thing being a dominant run for the United States. Berhalter totally outcoached in the Netherlands match. I hope you learned something from it. And then Pierluigi Collina needs to unretire. Will, turn away anyone wearing Mexico colors. I don't know if you could do that. I mean, because, you could go in wearing a blue golf shirt. I mean, how would you track where the ticket was purchased? How would you track where it came from? The individual that's attached to it. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. So we'll see with all of that. But it appears Greg Berhalter is going to be back for a second cycle manager for the USMNT. And to the OG's point, and Will wants to make a fan registry. You could do that. Tracking for me is going to be the part of this, and we've talked about it in other countries with other moments of stupidity. Fans throwing stuff, and that was the other thing too, that you had fans throwing stuff onto the field. And I don't know, and like we saw in the Europa Conference League final, somebody throws something plastic, hits a few team player in the back of the head, dude's bleeding. Getting to that point, you had folks at Allegiant last night throwing stuff onto the field. And I don't care. I do not care if it was pissed off throwing their water or their beer at the group of Mexico players surrounding Weston McKennie or Serginho Dest. Dest was probably more closer to the touchline and accessible by the fans on that short surface. I don't care. I do not care one bit. If you're a USMNT fan and you're seeing Serginho Dest and touchline getting pushed around, shoved around, and Arteaga hands to the face after initial contact, I don't care. I don't care if you're a USMNT fan and you feel compelled to sit there and throw your water/beer/beverage at an El Tree player. I don't care if you're a mad El Tree fan and you're at Serginho Dest. I don't care. Don't care. You've got no business doing that. And I feel like what I should do at some point, I will do this, and you probably have to remind me to do it. The Roy Kent press conference, and I know I'd probably get in trouble with Apple TV. The Roy Kent press conference after Isaac went charging up into the stands to confront the fan for saying the word that he did. I may have to pull the Roy Kent speech and play it consistently on this show to remind folks, just because you purchase a ticket doesn't mean you can do whatever the hell you want. I purchased a ticket, therefore I can throw my beer at a player. No, you can't. I purchased a ticket. I'm going to throw my hot dog at him. No, you can't. That doesn't give you the right to do that. All you're doing is you're making your fan base look ugly. Ugly. And like I said, I don't care if you're a fan of the U.S. or a fan of El Tree. If you threw stuff, and that's the word I'll use because I was about to use the other word. If you're throwing stuff onto the field that you purchased and paid entirely too much money for in the first place, the $8 bottle of water, 10 or 12 probably, throwing a soda, throwing a beer, throwing a plastic bottle, don't care. Don't care. And what I would hope is that if any of you see something like that, report whomever you see. Get them out. There has no place in any venue at any time. Whether it is vocal, using that chant, capital T, capital C, if you're a fan of El Tree, if you're throwing stuff onto the field, if you're trying to aim it at a player, you're trying to aim it at a player. Don't care. Fullest extent of the law. You're found out. They use the whatever tracking device when it comes to purchasing tickets and figuring out spaces and all that kind of stuff. Figure out who it is. Did you sit in these seats? Yes, I did. Then you're done. You're done as a fan going into a venue. Ricky, CONCACAF dropped a tweet before the match saying they were relaunching their campaign for what's wrong is wrong, but it's lip service at this point. It needs to stop. Punishment. It needs to stop, or punishment needs to go up. CONCACAF can sit there and say what's wrong is wrong. It is. But what are you going to do about it? Now, are you going to – what are you going to do after this match? What are you going to do, CONCACAF? If you're Victor Montaliani, what are you going to do after this match? Is it another press conference of lip service? Oh, those were disappointing. Let's see if we can get the soundbite. It was disappointing to see a handful of fans last night do what they did in the venue toward the end of the Mexico-United States match in CONCACAF Nations League, period. CONCACAF does not stand for that kind of behavior, and we will endeavor to do our best in the future to try to make sure that it does not happen, period. We will do everything within our power using resources available to us to make sure that events like last night do not happen again, period, close paragraph. Was that close? Something like that? The end. CONCACAF needs to get serious. Yeah. Yeah, Will's point. They started with the chant in the 13th minute. I think they did give the PA warning at that point. Louder and louder and louder and louder. You're really pushing the decibels at that point in the second half, and there's no even hiding it at that point. Second half, you're down 3-0. You're a fan. You're pissed off. You're going to say whatever you're going to say. And at the same time, yeah, they're chant at least 5 times in a. I think what you don't want to do, or you might be afraid to do it, you don't want to risk pissing off one of your major federations. That's why you get the constant finger wagging instead of anything else. Don't do it. Don't do it. We told you what was going to happen if you did it. Don't do it. It's like SMU and the death penalty. Don't do it. Don't bribe. Don't bribe them. Don't bribe it. Trying to get from Pony Excess. It's like get caught and do it again. Get caught and do it again. When do you finally say enough is enough? Legitimately, when do you finally say enough is enough? What was the quote from? Sometimes you gotta. Oh, what is it? It's sometimes you got a mouthy little kid and you just got to pop them in the butt. Empty building, massive fine to the Federation. I mean, and let it be a match. Honestly, let it be a match at the Estadio Azteca or something like that. A match that has maximum capability for fan participation from one side. No fans in. The visiting team gets theirs. Opposing the home side does not. Home side gets nothing. Ricky with an idea. Put the officials in the stands when you see it being said by immediately take them out of the stadium. I don't care how many people you've got to get. You know the exact situation it happens in. I like the idea on premise. Parzival, yeah, they probably would. Parzival asking, having it in Mexico and not allowing fans, wouldn't they just stand outside and do it? They probably would. And it probably would, it would create traffic issues. It would create issues in general for the implementation of the match. And then fans probably would go sideways with it, and you'd be dealing with local police outside. So it could escalate. It could absolutely escalate. Maybe what you do is you just go ahead and you hold it, no home game. No home game, no away fans allowed. Is no longer a home match. And for the next cycle, whatever it is, next X number of matches, you don't even get home games. You have to play on the road, and no away fans, none of your fans, meaning El Tree, are allowed in the building. Your team's got to play on the road the whole time. What happens? Tell you what. Next tournament, tell you what. You're playing on the road the whole time. You don't get a home game. You don't get a home game at all. And none of your fans are allowed to come into the country of the team that you're playing. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to thread the needle here a little bit. Still, the team participates in the tournament. If the problems are the fans, then what you do is create a situation where the fans. The only thing that I can figure as we go into the SDH workshop this morning is figure out, okay, if you had a home match and it was an empty barn, you're probably having security issues outside. Away team gets their fans in. Home team does not. You probably have issues outside. So then from there, if that is the problem and then you anticipate the security issues, then the home matches in name only, as Ricky is saying, home games should include U.S.-based Mexico. They can only play in Canada, Central America, or the Caribbean. And Ricky, stand at the front of the section, watch them, tell them at the beginning of the match that you say it, you're out. If we see it and you say it, you're out. You know that there's going to be some fans that are going to sit there and they always want to poke the bear. They're going to sit there. It's like, yeah, what want us to do? We did it in school all the time. Kids, be quiet. You sit there, you're still passing notes. Don't pass notes. And Parzival, that's the thing. What's been done in the past? Not a lot. The collective finger wag of doom. What would I do in response to last night? What would I do in response to last night? I would use security cameras to try to figure out who threw stuff. I would prosecute them to the. Oh, I know that the element of trying to make sure that they're not a part of the proceeding in the future, meaning they're a fan and that they're going to want to go in and see matches. What would I do? I guess you go of saying you're not allowed in any future national team match, knowing full well that they're going to try to find a way to get into a national team match. But you have to make that statement. Prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, first and foremost. Find the appropriate crime. No more. Lifetime ban. Lifetime ban from any kind of CONCACAF match, period. Ricky, I think that Montagliani should have SDH as a committee for enforcement. Fullest extent of the law. Make sure the fan never gets to go back into another match in CONCACAF. Doesn't matter what level, doesn't matter where. The enforcement of that is going to be the issue. I know that going in, but at least you're making the statement for others to sit there and go, hey, there's that guy. He's not allowed here. Make it a public spectacle. In front of each subsequent event, make sure that that individual's face is shown all. Have you seen this individual? Put it on the light boards around the stadium. Have you seen these individuals? Are they here today? If you see them, point them out because they're not supposed to be here. I don't know if it's against the law. I don't know. Michael, I don't. I legitimately don't. But you've got to figure out a way to make a stand. Fan registry with a matching photo before you come in, but then you know that they're going to try to find ways to get around it, fake mustaches, wigs, the whole thing. You might have to get to fingerprint technology at some the James Dolan facial recognition. Parzival's trying to figure out a process that can be tested, written, and followed through on. And that is the issue in all of this. It is one of the issues. And making sure that the experience is what it can be for the rest of you that aren't throwing things and endangering players. What worries me in a situation like last night is the close proximity, because Allegiant is not quite regulation. It's very Bronxian, very, very, very Yankee Stadium-ish when it comes to width. You end up with a fan that gets mad in a venue that's tight, hop the fence, do something. That kind of stuff always worries me. But you've got to do something to not happen. And I think what we have somewhat agreed on, Parzival asking if you can card fans, then you end the game. Suspensions from having fans that way, just trying to think of a process tested, written, and followed through on. This is enforcement. We're not quite to the AI point of life where, it's like we're all recognized. You walk into a building with thumbprint or facial recognition. You put your hand on the technology that's right there at the gate. You sit there and it's like, yes, this is this person. It's fingerprint technology yet. But I think we're getting to the point where you've really got to drop the hammer on these countries, as Will has said this morning, and prove to them that, hey, we're serious about this. The only way to really do that is to drop the hammer. And I think for the sake of security, we have figured out that the only way to do something is to remove the event from the country that is charged with the offense. No. I trust me, Parcel. I'm not wishing that kind of technology or that kind of AI on any of this. And I don't want our overlords from Skynet to try to take advantage of things. But I think we're to the point where you've got to remove, because we've been talking about it this morning. You got to drop the hammer on stuff like this. And an empty venue in a country that will only raise the security issues that much more. So I think what the SDH workshop has done this morning is let it be to where the offending country does not even get a home game, and fans of the offending country get through normal ticket administration for a match that is supposed to be a home match that is held in a different country. And maybe you make it difficult. Maybe what you do is, as a part of the removal of the home match from the home country, make it challenging. You get the Mexico versus Canada CONCACAF match that was slated for the Estadio Azteca is now held at the Halifax Wanderers Stadium in Nova Scotia, or at BMO, or at something like, someplace like that, 20,000. Swan Guard for Whitecaps FC2. McMahon Stadium, Commonwealth, any of the venues in the Canadian Premier League. You do something like that. Make it incredibly difficult to travel to that game, and make it difficult for folks to sit there and dive in and go, yeah, I want to go see the team. I want to go see my team. Oh, it's in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I don't know if I can afford that. You make it difficult on a bunch of different levels to try and figure out, okay, this is what we do. Manchester City assistant Enzo Maresca has agreed personal terms with Leicester to become their new boss, expected to finalize his move today, less than a week after Manchester City and Maresca got hugged by Jack Grealish. Manchester City is also now closing in on Mateo Kovacic, who's already agreed to personal terms. Optimism on all sides with a fee of over £30 million. Talk centered on the structure of a deal. Expectation of full agreement will be in place soon. So that's your Manchester City update for this morning. But, and so Parzival, once again, maybe what we do is press FIFA on all social media places every day. As much as I don't like mob rule, it may get something started. Might get you blocked. Will fill the stadium with Canadians and make the Mexican Federation pay for it. Could be something like that. If the Mexican Federation is having to pay for travel and all of these different things for their team to travel to a northern climb, maybe they played on the Alaska turf at Barrow High School. That'd be pretty sweet, actually. Find ways to make it difficult for the offending team and the offending federation to have fans on site. Because if a home game is a home game, there's security issues. So you've got to figure out, okay, let's take that next step, put it away, and put it over here. But it is of trying to sit there and go, stop it. You wag your finger. Stop it. Don't do it. We're serious this time. This literally is SMU and the death penalty. This literally is. You've gotten your fine, you've gotten your suspension, but you keep doing it because you have a payroll to meet. Or in El Tree's case, you've got to make sure that you try to figure out a way to improve your stead in CONCACAF. But will means make Mexico subsidize the Canadian Federation for match day workers, make their tickets cheaper for Canadians. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're paying for it. I mean, you're the home team. Hey, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will. You're the home team. You're paying for it. You're the home team in this match in Halifax, Nova Scotia. You're paying for it. You're paying game day ops. You're paying all these kinds of things to make sure that this match goes off without a hitch. No, your fans can't be here. No, your fans from maybe and I'm sure that there are L-Tree fans in Canada without question. Tickets will not be sold out of country. You have to be of a Canadian address to purchase a ticket, and the Mexican Federation, the CMF, they have to be the ones to pay for the whole thing, and the payment's got to be up front. You set a date. You know the dates ahead of time for when you're doing all these kinds. You know the date. You go up to the FMF and you sit there and go, we've got to have this money in our account by X time. Ricky says it's already a thing at the Benz for season ticket holders who opted in to be able to scan your tickets with your face. That's that. So it's really not that much further. I didn't know that. I was not aware. So I think we have successfully workshopped what to do when it comes to all of the stupidity, and that's the word that I'll use. And when Michael Parkhurst comes in here in just a little bit, I want to ask him about rivalries. I want to ask him, obviously, about Berhalter. I want to ask him about national team stuff. But I want to ask about mentoring folks and having them keep their cool, considering what we saw with Sergiño Dest and how difficult it is to keep your cool. I want to ask about hostile environments and what conversations are like with younger players about keeping your head. So Michael Parker is coming up in just a couple of minutes for Friday Free Kick and our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, where hopefully we can help you with any mentoring questions that you have coming across the board. Mark. And so what that means is that I'll finally remember to do it this week. Take the music out of loop, take it down to 15, and push my way through a promo, and hopefully remember how to talk about our friends from a Lemonized Service. Rotor Free, the place you need to go. It's our friends at a Lemonized Service. QR code not over my left shoulder because I'm not in the office. A lot better than having a masking agent either underneath the sink or above you in the cupboard, our friends at Lemonize, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard and you pull out that masking agent, you spray the masking agent in the air, there's a reason they call it a masking agent, because you're masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem all down to the molecule like your friends at Lemonize Service do with their proven scientific formula, or working with realtors and property managers to make sure that property is taken care of so it can be turned on the market very, very quickly. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers, and make sure that all of the odors are taken care of all the way down to the molecule with their proven scientific formula. The Lemonize, if you want to chase after them to have them help you with your problems, go to the website, lemonize.com. This is where I grab my pen. After the .com at Lemonize, go to /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your problems. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, it's ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Friday where we're talking about the men's national team. And here I had a bunch of topics. I had topics to talk about, Alicia Russo and her contract and everything going on there, and plenty to talk about in all of that. Parzival we can. Parzival, can we also talk about how the personalities last night were just stirring the pot on Berhalter being renewed as coach? A lot of it wasn't fact-based, and that's the dangerous part of all of this, is they were taking things, and it was not being discussed. They were not addressing it with the fact. And when you have a when you have a program that just wants to discuss things and stir the pot instead of addressing things from a factual basis, that's dangerous television. And you cannot have that. I'm all for earnest discussion, as we all know. I'm all for earnest discussion of the facts in any particular argument when it comes to whatever the topic is. But it has to be facts and evidence. You can't stir the pot like it was done. And I know that today is the generation of talk. And what we have always tried to be here at SDH is tried to be measured, tried to be factual, and try to proceed in that manner. That's what we have always tried to do when it comes to discussion of topics. What was going on last night, it was factual at points. And then you want to engage debate because apparently folks think that that's what you should do instead of looking at something factually for the sake of drawing eyeballs to a product. It was disappointing for a network that has invested as much as it has in the product. To go down that road last night was disappointing. You hope that they learn from a night like this. Unfortunately, I don't know if they do. But it was disappointing and it was dangerous. Like I said, we've always tried to do stuff involving factual behaviors and try to figure out where to go from here. Since it is after 9 o'clock, Michael Parkhurst, hopefully you, sir, you sound like you have both hands on the wheel of the car.
Dang, it's that obvious, huh?
Well, I mean, second, you said in our production meeting that you had an appointment at was it 9:45? Is that your appointment, sir?
That's it.
Okay. So full disclosure, Parky is on his way to play golf on a Friday, and I'm insanely jealous.
Yeah, and just dropped one of the two kids off at camp, and so most of my responsibility is done for a little while.
Okay, so is this an actual enjoyment round of golf that has nothing to do with anything, or is it tied to a particular product?
I mean, golf's always a little part fun, part business, isn't it? But it's
Yes,
mostly fun.
Yes, it is. There's nothing wrong with fun. So I will not keep you, sir, for an entirety because we and at least try to look like you're taking practice swings before you get on the first tee. I'm the kind of guy that goes cold turkey, and my golf game kind of warms up around the 13th hole, just on premise, and it's just like you're out there having fun, and that's all that matters. But
I prefer cold turkey as well, John. The more I warm up, the worse I play.
Yeah, because you're wasting those shots at the practice room, and you don't have the opportunity to show them out there on the course. I know how this works.
Exactly. Right. I mean, you got a breakfast ball on one anyway, so you just got to hit one of two.
Okay, so breakfast ball. I've heard of mulligans, of one mulligan per 9, but I've never heard it referred to as a breakfast ball.
Oh yeah, first tee breakfast ball for sure.
Okay, all right. So how late at night was it for you?
Not late, John. I'm not gonna lie. I was debating whether to stay up and watch the game, and I had gotten ready for bed. Kids actually went to bed early last night, which is a surprise for summer. And I checked online, and I was like, all right, let me see what time the game is actually starting. It says 10 o'clock, and I'm like, is this a 10:20 kickoff? What's going on? And I pulled up ESPN just to see if the game had started. It was like 10:05, and it said delay. And I said, well, mine made up. I don't know actually, because I didn't stay up then. Mine was made. I don't know what time it kicked off or why there was a delay, or even if there was a delay, or if ESPN was just wrong. But
I think that
for me,
if they're not going to recognize the super hyper mega long pregame show, then they're going to say, yeah, it's delayed.
Yeah, true.
All right, so
but I did catch up this morning on it and watched highlights, read about it. So I am informed and obviously thrilled with not only result, but it seems like the flow of the game and the domination and just, Mexicans losing their head out on the field and chaos. I mean, you wouldn't want it any other way.
Have you ever been in a chaotic situation like that, where like the world is just seemingly collapsing into a black hole of energy? When was the most heated thing that you've ever been a part of?
I can't remember if I've talked about it on this show or not, but when I was playing in Champions League in Denmark, we had kicked the ball out for the other team. We were playing against Shakhtar Donetsk. We kicked the ball out for them, so they had a guy down. And when they went to kick the ball back to us, their striker ran onto the ball, rounded our keeper, and scored. Yeah. While all of us were kind of just standing there like, what are you doing, dude? And so chaos ensued after that. And so that was probably most similar to that, where it was just like, what is going on out here? There's just mayhem everywhere.
Do you get the chance to talk to mentees or younger players about dealing with chaos, dealing with chaotic environments, keeping your head? Do you have those conversations?
Not dealing with melees, because you hope you never see that at a youth level. You hope you don't see it at the, I know that we're talking about it's chaos and it's fun to watch, but obviously you don't really want to see those types of melees. But no, not really. We talk about chaos within the game, where it's like, hey, things are going wrong and nothing's going right, and can you survive those moments where you really have to dig in and forget about the game plan for a little bit and forget about playing pretty and whatever, and literally just dig in and survive until you're able to turn the tables a little bit. That type of adversity, yes, but not chaos melee type stuff.
Well, and the reason I ask is just the idea of keeping your, because last night Weston McKennie looked like he was in a battle royale from the WWF and had to kind of fight his way out of a scrum at the Mexico bench, and then Serginho Dest gets shoved twice, like at the head level, dangerous stuff. He loses his head for the final, and it's all about the repercussion about keeping your head in a heated situation like that. And that was why I wanted to ask about any kind of impact.
Yeah, totally. And you play against teams that and certain individuals, and there's even guys in MLS that are like this. They just constantly try and get under your skin to provoke you. And we talk about there's always two battles to win in every game, in every individual matchup, right? There's the physical battle and there's the mental battle. And, both are equally as important. And yeah, you have to stay cool in those moments. And, I don't mind Weston's reaction too much, because, that's a terrible red card from the Mexican player, and you need to stick up for your teammates. And I don't think that he actually deserved a red card in that moment, because he didn't go hands to the face. I didn't at least see anything like that. Like, I thought it was just some pushing, and I was actually surprised he was shown red there. Dest was a different situation that could have been totally avoided. I know that he gets kicked a little bit and there's a little bump, but you brush that off, you laugh it off, kind of like, hey, it's 2-0, you're trying to do this stuff to me. That was a little bit more, hey, in that moment, right? A little bump, he's trying to provoke you, trying to get a red card. You got to just keep running back and laugh it off. Like, yeah, that's all they got today.
And when you look at where Mexico is right now, El Tri is, to say El Tri is a dumpster fire might be offensive to dumpsters.
God, you hate to see it, John, don't you?
I mean, man, it is bad news central down there right now.
It is, and some of it they bring upon themselves of like, I thought they unfairly treated Tata and the staff there early on, right? You dominate qualifying and you qualify for the World Cup, and it's just like nothing's good enough in that respect. And so, tides have changed for sure, right? And there's a young crop of Americans who, don't care about 20 years ago and 10 years ago when Mexico was on top for a long time. They just know the present, and the present is these guys are going out there and working them. And, now it's a case of right now it seems like, hey, we're going to get the better of them most of the time, and they'll win every now and then, where it was the opposite earlier. But, that from our perspective, it's fantastic to see, obviously.
What's it like to hang out with your mentees? Does the national team ever get talked about with your mentees, and what you can do, and if you apply yourself, those kinds of things? And what's it like to talk to younger players and younger talented? The U.S. is kicking out.
Yeah, only with a couple individuals, because we never want to, set that bar too
Right.
high where you're aiming for the national team when you're still trying to get to college or play for your high school team or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it gives us all a sense of pride and all something to shoot for, and now you like look forward to these games, and for so long the Mexicans and a lot of other nationalities, they would look forward to the game, and smirk and do all these little things, and now it's like, well, if we don't let them get into our heads, then we really have the upper hand, which is a really, really nice feeling to have, right? Where you're going into a game and you're like, it's up to them to beat us, not vice versa. Like, we're on top. And I don't want to say like, hey, it's definitely that way and it's been like that for a while. Like, no, tides are turning. It's still pretty recent that we've kind of got the upper hand, but yeah, I think we're going to enjoy it for as long as we can. And it doesn't seem like it's going to come to an end anytime soon. I mean, this young group of American players that we have are young, talented, hungry, and they're impressive.
And it looks like they're getting their same boss back. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It looks like Greg Berhalter is returning to get a new contract. When that kind of trickled its way through last night, what were your initial thoughts? And now that you've had time,
surprised, honestly. I had heard from somebody that Jesse Marsch was all but done, like basically signed, sealed, delivered type thing. So I don't know if they had heard wrong or if something happened at the last minute, and they pivoted.
Pivot.
And in one instance, I'm surprised because of that news, but also because of just the drama and the silliness that was U.S. soccer for, a couple months after the World Cup. And I thought they might want to get away from all of that. But I'm not surprised in a total soccer sense. Like, the Gio Reyna and Claudio Reyna story aside, I think Greg would have been back with the national team. I don't think he would have had a hiatus. Like, I think he would have just continued on and been our coach for the next cycle. I think it was only because of this story and debacle that there was this hiatus. But, I am a bit surprised that they went back, following it.
You a 2-cycle guy? Can you live with 2 cycles, or are you a 1 cycle and out kind of a guy?
I can absolutely live with 2 cycles, and I think that there's some benefits to it. I think that anytime you go through something for the first time, and as a coaching staff going to a World Cup is the first time, you learn things, right? Things that you look back on and you said, oh, this worked, this didn't work, I should have done this different. Like, as far as preparation and training and games leading up to the World Cup, and maybe rotation of guys at the World Cup, or, so many different little things where I think that experience can help the U.S. staff be even better prepared for next cycle, and obviously we'll know the lay of the land a little bit better, and being in our home country. But I do think all that stuff helps. So I am for the continuity.
Are you in the parking lot of the golf club?
I sure am. Gosh, John, you are good. You are good. I mean, either that or my headphones are really terrible that you can hear everything.
I didn't hear a car moving, and that was why I stopped. That's why I was asking. I'll just bug you for another couple of minutes.
No rush.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about this is the chant, capital T, capital C. And obviously they started, the Mexican fans started it in the 13th, 14th minute. And it's obviously stuff like that has no place in the game, none at all. But what do you do? Michael Parkhurst is the king of all soccer for a day. What do you do to ensure folks remember that this is something that doesn't happen, should not happen? How do you punish teams for having fans that do this kind of stuff where they run the chant, capital T, capital C? They throw stuff at players, because in the Dest incident, you had folks throwing stuff, plastic bottles, all of that kind of thing, throwing them at players. I don't care who you were throwing it at. I don't care Yaga for choking Dest, or if you're a fan of El Tree for throwing it at Dest for being in the pile. There's no place for it. How do you address, if you were king of soccer, how would you address that stuff?
I think everything comes down to finances, right? You have to punish the federation financially, and then they will enact stricter policies. And I think you do that by making them play closed door games, not giving them any home games. And I know that this wasn't a home game, where they make a ton of money off of it. But, I think that somehow you need to really hurt them financially, and then they will crack down on their own fans, right? Because and from my point of view, that's the only way you're going to get it done. And I think that these fans, if they are true fans of the national team, they want to see their team play, they want to support them, and if they know that it's not accepted, right? I think that when you think of a US-Mexico game, you just expect that chant, you expect the beer being thrown, and that's where we are right now. And so you need to change that expectation where that's not what you expect when you have these two teams play, right? Because you don't expect that when you watch an MLS game. You don't expect if the opposing team is cheering on or celebrating a goal, you don't expect to see anything thrown at them, right? So why do we expect that for a US-Mexico game? Right? Because it's tolerated. And it's tolerated because of money, and because both federations made a ton of money last night.
When it comes to your mentees and younger players, obviously you're going to have parents yelling things. You're going to have fans yelling things they shouldn't, parents yelling things they shouldn't, using words that they shouldn't under any circumstance. When it comes to you and Greg having conversations with younger players, how do you remind them to try to tune it out as best they can, even though you probably can't tune it out 100% of the time? How do you mention to younger players about tuning out all of the stupidity and the noise and all of the degrading things that can be said sometimes?
Yeah. It's easier said than done for sure. And it takes time to get used to that. But I think it comes down to focus, right? And focusing on the game and focusing on the next play. And if you're doing that, right, guys, a lot of professionals, they talk about, like, you hear the crowd noise in the beginning when you're walking out, right? But when the game starts, it's just like it's like white noise, basically. You know that there's noise out there because you can't communicate sometimes with teammates, but you don't hear anything, if that makes sense, right? And so you just learn to tune it out, and you don't hear the good, you don't hear the bad, right? It's just white noise, and that's it takes a little time to get used to, but for sure we try and have kids be looking. If you're going to look for guidance, right, look to the coach, don't look to parent. And, we try to have that conversation with parents too, right? Hey, you're not the coach, right? You shouldn't be coaching on the sideline, right? If you want to do that, go be the assistant coach. Otherwise, sit there, cheer on and be quiet. And, I think that's where we run into problems when kids are constantly looking over at mom and dad to see, are they yelling at me? What are they saying? Are they happy about me? Right? No, look, you look at your coach, you look at your teammates, and they'll let you know how you're doing.
All right. What's the latest with Beyond Goals after the breakfast ball in the 18? What else is going on?
Still following up with Atlanta United players, the released players, they're getting ready for the tournaments this weekend, actually. Playoffs going on this weekend. So we spoke to them early on this week, parents and players in the evening, and just giving them some advice about not only this tournament, but the off season coming up in the summer and taking some time away to enjoy life outside of soccer and get away. And then when the time is right, focus back in and get ready for the season. And also do a little reflection, a little gratitude of this past year. I don't think that we do enough of that.
All right, go exit your car, turn off your Bluetooth, go enjoy the 18, my friend, and we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for joining us on the road doing safe interviewing, which we did. Parking lot. Cap, thanks as always.
My pleasure, John. Have a great weekend.
All right, be good. And there's Michael Parkhurst. He's going to go play golf. All right, so coming up in short order, it's going to be Jarrett and Bart, and that's how we'll wrap up the show this week. We do have games in Major League Soccer. Let me that are not involving Atlanta United, and we've got a handful, and so it will be interesting to see what happens here with these teams that are playing this weekend, who opted in to play this weekend, and let you know what's going on. So tomorrow, 3:30, Apple TV and MLS Season Pass, Columbus at NYC. 7:30, RSL at DC United on Season Pass. Everybody's on Season Pass. 7:30, Orlando at New England Revolution. 8:30, LAFC on the road, bam, to take on Sporting Kansas City at Children's Mercy. That one's on Season Pass, 8:39. Also, St. Louis, all caps, is at Nashville. Matchup in the Western Conference at 8:39 on Season Pass. Then your late game, San Jose hosting Portland. That one is at 10:30 on MLS Season Pass and Apple TV. So 6 matches on your Saturday. And bam, a nice win for Sporting Kansas City this weekend. And Hutch, we all should be dedicated followers of Leisure, much like Michael Parkhurst. Trying to grab our juice boxes, if I can, in a quick manner. So 339 season series. I need like that. It's on. So this one's at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. At least we know that. Where are the juice boxes? They stopped posting the juice boxes in the run when they substitute now pass element of it all instead of telling us what things where things are with the juice boxes. It's like we're going to say that we're now on Season Pass instead of let you know what the juice boxes are when it comes to the odds for the weekend. So. MLS odds. All right, so let's see if we can. All right. NYCFC and Crew. NYCFC is a plus 115. Ooh, Crew is a plus 215 on the road. Draws a plus 245. I like the Crew in that one. DC's a minus 150 with RSL visiting. Draws a plus 275. RSL is a plus 380. Revs minus 125 hosting Orlando City. Your draws a plus 265. Orlando City. And Nashville is a minus 5 at home hosting All Caps SC. Draws a plus 295, and All Caps are a plus 380. Sporting, slight home favorite. Bam. You're a plus 165 as a dog on the road. Margin's not that far. It's a plus 145 from Sporting, and your draws a plus 245. And it is Earthquakes, plus 105 at home, hosting the Timbers. Timbers are a plus 245. Your draw is a plus 230. Reminder, fix your fantasy teams. Fix your fantasy teams. Remember, only a limited number of folks are playing this week, so choose wisely with your players. We mentioned CONCACAF. In a statement, John Arnold. Statement made overnight, CONCACAF condemns homophobic chanting at CNL semifinal, says it will make a further statement in short order. Paragraph 2. Chants heard during the game led to the activation of the anti-discrimination protocol by the match officials. Additionally, security staff ejected several fans for engaging in unacceptable behavior in the stadium. We did see a bit of that. Incidents were extremely disappointing and tarnished what should have been a positive occasion to showcase the region. The Confederation is in the process of urgently establishing further details, and reports from security and match officials will make a further statement in short order. How close was that to what we had figured? Were we close? I think we were close. So we were close in trying to figure out what was going to be said. So I think we were in the ballpark there. So not necessarily a surprise. Got all of that. So Ashes update from BAM. England is 174-3, Brook with 32, and Root at 36. So, so that's right. That's night side for BAM watching the Ashes. Yeah. So there's watch the Ashes just once. If you're not a fan of cricket, tournament. So I would watch it at least once, so you could sit there and go, okay, now I know what folks are talking about. Like I said, with cricket for me, now that BAM has gone down this road on a Friday, Sachin Tendulkar. Go on YouTube. You will go down the rabbit hole. It will take a while for you to come out. One of the greatest batsmen in the history of the sport, Sachin. Ridiculously talented. I mean, if you want to put it in baseball parlance, dude was a home run hitter. I mean, he was like the Hank Aaron of cricket. Absolutely brilliant with the bat and tremendously talented individual. So Sachin Tendulkar, that's your Google search and YouTube search today. Then Shane Warne, absolutely, yes, best spin bowler of all time. Think of it this way, spin bowler, pitcher. One of the best pitchers, could absolutely do some magical things when he was bowling, pitching. And yeah, so Sachin Tendulkar, Shane Warne, absolutely correct. So that's your leisurely while you're eating lunch homework assignment for the weekend. Since we'll have that on the network for you on Sunday night, 6:45 is the pregame show. First kick from York Lions Stadium on the campus of York University in Ontario Province. A little after 7 o'clock on Sunday night, Jason will have the call. I will have your pre and take you through the halftime as well. Once again, remember Atlanta United 2, Columbus Crew 2. It was a 2-2 draw after 90 minutes. Went 7 frames in the shootout last night before with the extra point. So well-earned point on the road. We're going to be catching up with head coach Steve Cook later on this morning as they make their way from Columbus to Toronto. And we'll see what his takeaways are from the match last night. And as they get ready in a very, very tough Central Division. Right now, Atlanta United's right there. A couple of weeks ago, you remember that match at Kennesaw. It was a 2-0 win for Atlanta United 2. Took a little while for the Twos to get their legs underneath them, but now they're going to York. York's turning into a tough place to play for the Young Reds. They're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and we'll see what's up with the Young Reds as they host Atlanta United 2 Sunday night. Fran, watching the other match in the U23s this morning. Probably can catch that on FS2 and a bunch of other places. While we're thinking about it and while we are waiting for the rest of the brigade to help us finish out the show here on another week, what you can watch today, Euro 2024 qualifying FS1, Malta and England at 2:45. Friendly Poland and Germany on FS2 at 2:45. Gold Cup preliminaries at 7 and 9 on FS2. Martinique and St. Lucia and Curacao and St. Kitts and Nevis, Tuda NA has your friendly with France and Mexico at noon Eastern time. MLS Season Pass has San Jose 2 at 8:30. Fox Soccer Plus. Finland, Slovenia at noon. Gibraltar, France at 2:45. Trinidad and Tobago, Guadeloupe at 4:30. Valor and Forge in the Canadian Premier League at 8. Fubo Sports has a friendly with Sweden and New Zealand at 1. 4, 8, 9 of the Euro Championship qualifying matches at 2:30. Paramount Plus, 2 matches in the Brasileiro at 3. Sao Paulo, Palmeiras and Goianense. Pay-per-view has Greece and Ireland at 2:30. Colombia, Iraq at 3. Tubi has Serbia, Jordan at 2:30. VIX has Euro Championship qualifying all day long. Most of them are at 2:35, 3, 6, 9, 12 matches. International friendlies, got 3 of them, 12:20, 12:50, and 2:45 in preliminaries on VIX, 4:37 and today. And that means that we bring in Jarrett and Bart to wrap up the show for another week. What's the mug, Bart?
It's Good Morning Baltimore because we're fighting homophobia, racism, and misogyny this morning.
Excellent. All right. So
got that at when I went to go see Hairspray 2 weeks ago. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Got to go see Hairspray. It was on different nights, but you got to go see Hairspray 2 weeks ago. All right. So from 30,000 feet, Bart, I'll start with you now that you got your nap in after late night television. 3-0, but there's a lot of other subplots. What sticks in your mind?
Listen, the 3-0 and the way that game played out is, I think, indicative of where these two programs are at this point in time. We had I think it was a Gold Cup final in 2011. Maybe it was 9, but I'm pretty sure it's 2011, where Mexico thrashed us. And it was a very good kind of benchmark of where the two programs were at that time. Kind of continued even farther into that in 2015 when we didn't even make the Gold Cup final. But this was a good representation of where these two teams are right now. And you saw the lineups come out and you went, oh, crap, we're actually the better, more talented team. And that has really never happened against Mexico until very, very recently. That performance last night was dominant from the U.S., despite the fact that, we didn't necessarily control possession, but we did control the actual action on the field. We won more duels. We actually had more they had like double our pass numbers, but we had more passes in their attacking and their defending half than they had in ours. Obviously, the 3 goals were very well worked goals. Maybe the first one a little lucky, but the second 2 were just exploiting their defense for being not very good. And then you add to the fact that Mexico and their fans, more importantly, reacted so poorly to the fact that they are just washed. And it's just the realization that they all know that they're just a bunch of trash people in that stadium, throwing trash on the field and making trash and homophobic chants to the point where the referee just said, screw it, we're done.
Yeah, well, we got into that, and I still believe that Ivan Barton has no business calling a match.
He had a very bad match, and we can talk about that as a referee.
Oh, no doubt. We will talk referee here. And Jarrett Smith from 30,000 feet, now that you've had your nap.
Look, I mean, it's a 3-0 win that frankly could have been worse. That is, it's kind of a weird one because I feel like people didn't really. I feel like people really didn't enjoy it because of the Berhalter news and because of all of the background that comes with that, and I kind of feel like we collectively, the royal we, didn't enjoy the fact that Mexico is going in a very negative direction right now. You're biggest rival is an absolute mess. If the manager had gotten
You
fired
just hate
before
to
he
see
got
it,
on,
Jarrett.
if the manager had gotten fired before he walked off the field, I wouldn't have been surprised.
No, I thought he would have been Kiffin last night. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the officiating, look, the fact that he put 12 minutes on the board is unacceptable. That game had boiled over to the point that it was cooked. At 90 minutes, that game was done. Mexico had nothing to offer you other than starting fights, and it was 3-0. I don't really care how much stoppage there was in the second half. You should have ended the game at 90 minutes on the dot. And when you do your referee report afterward and they ask, why'd you stop it at 90? Because it was boiling over and the game was done. We needed to get everyone out of there safely.
Yeah, I'd rather them say, "Oh, we're going to do 2 minutes of stoppage and do 2 minutes to be done," right? Than the 12 minutes and stop at 7. Because I'm with you, Jarrett. Like, I think the referee report could have very easily been like, as the manager of this match, it was to the point where it would have been harmful to more players to continue.
Mm-hmm.
As it went on, I kept, you get desks eventually sent off, and I kept thinking, like, this is just going to boil over, and we're going to have even more problems. You know who enjoyed that is Canada.
Yeah.
Because Canada got to have a pretty fun 2-0 victory over Panama. Canada, who, by the way, is now your biggest rivalry in CONCACAF. Mexico, you had my rivalry with Mexico has been ended. Canada is now my rival. But
they're almost as fun to hate because they think they're so darn nice.
Just ask John Hurt.
And they're not.
John Herdman's obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this yesterday, that like Canada tried 3 different identities at the World Cup and none of them worked, and they made more press for running their mouths, for Herdman running his mouth, than they did for their play on the field. Low key, a fun game to watch is going to be the third place game, because after what the USA did to Mexico, you don't think Panama's watching that thinking, oh, we're going to crawl all the way inside of Mexico's head. We're going to make this a psychological warfare, and we are going to torment the bullies of CONCACAF in a way that the United States has never dreamt of.
Yeah, we'll see what Panama can do. I thought they were pretty decent against Canada, but a lot of action with no real end product. Whereas Canada is only end product. They don't have any action before that. So that played out perfectly for Canada, that match. But yeah, Jarrett, it was weird to see the U.S. bullying Mexico on the field to the point where Mexico's only option was to start kicking and elbowing and punching players, because they knew they'd get away with it, because CONCACAF referees continually protect Mexican players for when they do that crap. In that entire melee, that West gets a red card, which I don't have a problem with. Like, look, both red cards we got, it's hard to really get. It's hard to get too upset that we also got a red card. But how was West the only person who came out of that melee with a red card?
Mm-hmm.
The entire half the Mexican bench is up there grabbing and pushing him and trying to do it to other team players. And VAR looked at it and said, no, just West. That is shameful from the entire referee crew. It's shameful from CONCACAF. The referee absolutely lost control of that match. And it started when Acuna should have been given a second yellow card for putting a shoulder into Gio Reyna's face. That would have been targeting in many SEC schools games. Like, seriously. And
Smoke Monday's got issues with Arteaga.
Like, I know it's not leading with the head, but he that was targeting, right? And that at that point, he gave a signal to Mexico. It's fine. It's fine. Y'all can be trashy, classless players like you always have been, but now you just suck. So it doesn't really make up for it. Sorry, I'm not holding back on Mexico, because they were a terrible display of what the sport should be last night. They offered us the absolute worst of both sportsmanship, fan involvement, and just general play.
Mm-hmm.
They don't deserve any praise. They don't deserve any benefit of the doubt. They were it was So I don't know how a Mexican fan could not be embarrassed by how they performed last night on and off the field. I'm sorry. It was absolutely shameful.
Yeah. And so then let me ask you this. I mean, we've kind of gotten into reffing down here and how Yvonne Barton has no business being a center ref in the future for anything of that import. With fans throwing stuff on the field, I don't care if you were throwing it at the Mexican players, if you were a U.S. fan of Serginho Dest getting shoved in the head twice, if you're a U.S. fan and you threw something at that gaggle, or if you were an El Tree fan throwing something at and the players there, I don't care. Find out who you are. You're done. You're not coming to another match, and whatever facial recognition technology we have, we'll figure it out.
There has to be actual sanctions against the Mexican team and their federation. And as I tweeted last night, slightly in an inebriated state of anger, there has to be actual sanctions against Mexico, because clearly the threat of not having matches or fans at their matches didn't work. I tell you one that they should do, and this is something that U.S. Soccer maybe can do, is don't allow Mexico, and FIFA maybe has to step in. Mexico cannot host matches in the U.S. anymore, at least for a given period of time. Obviously, it's kind of hard to do stuff for the Gold Cup when it comes to fans because those are neutral site. I get that. Yeah. But I would very much say, Mexico, you don't get to host matches in the U.S. because you know where all of their money comes from? Those matches. Mm-hmm. So that would be a sanction I would do. I would even go so far as to investigate pulling their World Cup hosting rights. But, Qatar got to host. So if you're going to let Qatar host, then I don't know how you would take that away from Mexico. But, yeah, there needs to be actual sanctions that will actually hurt them and punish the fans. And I think that's where we get to, is not being able to host in the U.S. would punish both the federation financially and the fans, because they wouldn't be able to watch their team and act like fools throughout the entire match.
And you pay.
It started in the 13th minute, John.
Yeah, it does.
13th minute.
I know. And it was 5 warnings to go through 3 steps.
Yeah.
Katie, we all have doppelgangers, Katie. I know that you have one yourself. It was not Gianni Infantino in the suit that was pushing Wes toward the locker room after the melee. It was a doppelganger. I don't know who it was, but it did look a lot like Gianni Infantino. I would, and we've talked about it this morning on the show, some of the other folks in Twitch Pitch have said, okay, yeah, you don't host. It's made as difficult as possible for your team to play in an opposing venue, and you also pay the operating costs in the away venue for your team to get there. In Canada, and they play it at the Halifax Wanderers Stadium. You're paying for the operating costs for that match under normal circumstances. You're paying the freight for that match to happen. None of your fans are allowed in it. None of your fans are allowed to buy tickets from outside the country that is hosting that particular match. Something like that. Just thinking out loud. And then David will deduct points for World Cup qualifying. Oh, wait. Yeah, so we've got that too. I think they considered that maybe going into the 2021-22 cycle. I know they had to play some games behind closed doors, reportedly. But yeah, I mean, again, clearly the procedures aren't working. The warnings aren't working. And at this point, it seems like they're weaponizing that. Sorry to steal a hot term from politics right now. No, but they're weaponizing that to affect the match, and clearly that was their goal last night. Because I mean, that one right before the 90th minute was the loudest that it has ever heard, like coming across the television. You know, it was. I mean, Jarrett's point now is so pissed off that they are.
I didn't read the FCC warning today.
No, you didn't. No, pissed off is not. Pissed off is fine.
We're fine. It's
literally it's using that chant, capital T, capital C, to hurt their own team now. That's where the El Tree fans are as a
They're it's a pathetic, we're gonna take our ball and go home kind of thing, you know? And it's man, it's not okay on multiple fronts, but it's just it's such like a, we don't like the way this is going, so we're gonna be done kind of nonsense. And it's just, the whole thing's pathetic. It took away from what was a really fun. It did take away, and you can call it dramatic if you want to, but look, people are impacted by this. There's a reason you have the rule in place. CONCACAF put the rule. They might not enforce it. CONCACAF might be all bargain, no bite, but people do have emotions about it. People do care because they should. But the fact that Mexico's fans, more specifically, in a large group, decide that they want to take their ball and go home, they shouldn't have that opportunity. Play it behind closed doors for this next one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, you know what? No. For the third place game, play it as normal. But when we get into the octagonal, start playing their games behind closed doors in Mexico.
Well, but I was thinking that through, and do you not create the possibility of a security issue outside the stadium with fans wanting to either charge the gates or yell or do whatever outside the stadium, creating something outside the stadium instead of inside? That's why I said everything's on the road.
But here's the thing,
we don't
man.
have qualifying coming up, though, is the problem.
But
there's no meaningful matches for Mexico until the World Cup in 2026. So, is the option we don't let them participate in Copa America? I don't think that's going to happen. Because
you cannot sit here and use the fear of that sort of thing to decide not to sanction somebody. That's bullshit.
I agree, but CONCACAF, they continually protect, and the U.S. is beneficiary of this as well. They continually protect their big dogs, But there is a lot of there's so many other good things from the U.S. last night.
Like what?
Well, Christian Pulisic scored twice after Mexico fans told us that he was washed, terrible, not very good, doesn't belong in the Prem. Scored twice on Mexico. Ricardo Pepi, the guy who chose the U.S. over Mexico, scored on Mexico.
Got that Cruton.
We got another clean sheet.
Too.
That was you know what, Jarrett? It was great because I forget if it was who it was. Maybe it was Martin in the first half, I think. No, it was the second half, but had a very similar play where he could have dribbled around Turner and after a bad giveaway, could have dribbled around Turner and maybe done similarly to Pepi, and he did not. And Pepi was just cool as a cucumber, able to do that. It was such a dominant performance. And again, I know Mexico did have more possession at the end of the day because, they had to. But the U.S. conceded 0 goals again. And really, Matt Turner never really having to make what I felt was like a hero save. Granted, I don't think Memo had to either, mainly because we scored 3 goals and, he didn't have a chance to. Miles Robinson now apparently is at 380 minutes against Mexico in total and has conceded 0 goals. But, Jarrett, I've been told he's not good enough because he plays in MLS. And Atlanta United has held him back. But that is a positive. Chris Richards and Miles Robinson, watching them play center back together was fantastic. Serginho Dest, who, by the way, throughout the game, a lot of times I thought Gio Reyna was Serginho Dest because of the hair color. I'm not used to Gio having the platinum blonde, but hey, it worked because Gio was also on a heater last night. It just didn't come off every time. But Dest was, Serginho Dest can come through and really show his class when it comes to a big game for the U.S. I thought even, to an extent, Flo was really good. I just don't think you can't prepare. No amount of telling someone for what was going to happen last night could have prepared him for what happened last night, Jared. It was like, you could have been like, okay, Flo, they're going to kick you every time they get an opportunity and they're going to get away with it. He'll go, okay, yeah. Not realizing that they will literally kick you every opportunity they get and get away with it. And then just the brawls that we had. I mean, there's no way that any amount of like storytelling could have prepared Flo for what happened last night. But it's good he got that taste. I hate for the guy that his first appearance for the U.S. was that match.
Yeah, it was chaotic. It's your first match, and you survived it. Yeah, like at the end of the day, all this nonsense takes away from the fact that USA had call it a comfortable game against Mexico.
Yeah.
Because holy hell, we're not used to that. We've never been used to that. For good reason.
It was, I mean, I think for me personally, I had my general, like, usual pre-Mexico jitters of like, oh my gosh, like this game is going to be tough. This is going to be really a battle and all these things. Once the game kicked off, I was like, oh, we're better. Like everywhere. Yeah. Debatably, maybe not better at goalkeeper. I will still give Memo Ochoa a whole lot of praise because he deserves it. But Matt Turner is a fantastic goalkeeper in his own right.
Doing the job, man.
Yeah. Center backs, clearly better. Clearly better at winger. The midfield was so much better than their midfield, which when's the last time we could have ever said that about a USA-Mexico game?
Yep.
And it just, again, it is, we can talk very briefly about the other news of last night, but I think the best thing right now is that this group of players who have had since 2019, really more like 2021, but like since 2019, we've been building toward the 2026 opportunity, right? With trying to get these young, incredible players to play together, grow together. And now they're moving into the primes of their careers. And as a unit, they're so comfortable with each other, confident in one another. This is not in support of necessarily the breaking news from last night, but it is a testament to the culture and the camaraderie that has been built in that program, in that team, by the guy who will now be rehired as head coach of the USMNT national team.
Yeah. So we'll have all of that to look forward to. So does this mean that there's going to be a special Soccer for USPOD?
We'll have to see what our availability is because the weekend is coming up, right? So watch this happen at Friday, today at noon, be a slight news dump.
I think soccer does such a good job of setting their own people up for criticism. Like, you have a manager who you're going to rehire, who I think was fine. And I would love to know who were the other finalists. But he's contentious. Everything about it is tense. And you pick right before a U.S.-Mexico game to drop the news. You do nothing to help him because
it's probably because they really thought that it was the best time to distract everyone. Like, I would have rather them come out with it this morning to we're already in a good mood. Fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's perfect. Or and if you had won the game, come out with it this morning. If you had lost the game, I don't know, come out with it next week.
Or come out with it this morning and be like, hey, look, we got to do this. I don't know, but it was. I think what bothers me most, Jarrett, is, why hire Sportsology to take 6 months to bring you back to the same place you were? Why go through the I guess in my opinion, after the investigation concluded of what happened, it very well could have just been like, hey, you know what? We still feel like Greg Berhalter is the best option. Make it very clear he will be part of that process of being interviewed. But I think the problem now is you have a coach who has admitted to committing some sort of domestic harassment, abuse, battery, which word you want to use for it. Granted, we need to realize that has been resolved by he and his wife, and there has clearly been steps to fix and amend and prevent that from happening again. So, but it's out there. You have a coach who had open problems with a player's parents. Now, again, I don't think that Greg mishandled the Gio situation at all until when he started talking about it after the World Cup. I think that was where I do not disagree with what he did, especially because it's not like Gio deserved that at all. But at the same time, you have a guy who multiple players over the past 6 months have said they respected him, they liked him, several of them saying they would want him back. I mean, I even listened to Scuffed do an interview with Luca De La Torre yesterday, and Luca praised Greg. Like, it wasn't, he didn't say he wants him back, but he was like, he admitted that he did a good job. He said he did a good job building a culture and a chemistry within the group. And I do think that is very important at the national team level. I need Greg to improve upon his rigid tactics because, as we have seen since Greg left, we have basically played a double pivot and looked very good in that. So Greg needs to take note of that because that man was married to the 4-1-2-3. And that, for better or worse, was how he played. He does need to learn to be less rigid with his tactics. The philosophy is fine. Clearly the culture is fine, but he has to make changes. I do also want to talk real quick about the absolutely moronic notion that equal pay had something to do with this. Vlatko Andonovski made less than $500,000 last year. Greg Berhalter made $1.8 million. That's 3 times. Whereas, like, even if you're comparing like market price, that's not equitable in any way, shape, or form. So let's not talk about equity and equal pay as the reason. The reality is U.S. Soccer has never paid a head coach for their men's team more than $3.5 million. And that one was when Jurgen Klinsmann was also your technical director. I don't think people understand 2 things. And this is just the reason why I think Greg ultimately was picked. One, there are budgetary restraints in U.S. soccer. There are anywhere in international soccer. Hansi Flick was the highest paid last World Cup, and he only made like $7 million, which is laughable for most decent club coaches, right? Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace made $4 million, which would have been a big stretch for U.S. soccer to have to pay per year for that guy. Now, granted, you could work in you're not working every day the same way. Like we're going to give you 2.5 or something like that. There's ways to negotiate. But once you start doing that, you're going to lose the interest of a guy who probably could go get a club job somewhere and make $3 to $5 million. So, and we talked about this on the podcast this previous week. There was just a limit that U.S. soccer could pay. People don't want to admit that. For some reason, they think we have $20 million to go get Pep. This is not Texas A&M. We don't have that. Okay? Sorry. There are ways to get money, but we ain't got Texas A&M money. We ain't got UGA money for all intents and purposes, So you have to approach this with some sort of level-headedness and understand that there are limitations on the job search. That said, I do think that we could have tried to find a better coach than Greg Berhalter because I do think that he has obvious issues, but here we are.
And on that, kicking us out of the cabin. Yes, they're kicking us out of the cabin. I know we need to have this conversation. We need to have like a full hour with it when we come back during the international window and just have Bart get in trouble with his real world job and make sure that we can have this discussion on a longer scale. So that's going to do it for another week. Jarrett, it's your turn to send us home because Bart did it last. I always do it when neither of you are on. So go ahead and send us home for another week.
All right, fine. Mucha plot to y'all.
Wow, that was enthusiastic. That's the end of the week.
Look, the last 24 hours have been a pain in my ass.
Yes. And
go watch the Ashes with me and Bam.
There you go. So go watch the Ashes. Atlanta United 2 soccer on Sunday at 6:45, Toronto FC 2, and we'll rock and roll from there. So we got stuff coming up. We got stuff that's going on the network all over the place. Once again, thanks for another week. Everybody be safe. We're out the door. Bye.